a playlist original.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson. Our very first episode of 2024.
That's
That's weird
right.
to say.
Happy New Year. We're actually recording on New Year's Day and appropriately taking a look back during this episode at the last year of movies and the significant events in the industry. Very excited to chat about that and also excited to look forward to what's to come in 2024 as well. I can't believe we're actually here.
Yeah, it's still very weird to say. The year went by really, really fast.
Yes, they get quicker every year. The older
I know
we
if
get.
2024 could just take its time and move slowly,
Yeah.
that would be great. Let's let it marinate a little bit. Let's enjoy the year, and we don't have to speed through it.
Right.
But 2023 was a fun year for us as a show and for movie news and films and in general. We had a really interesting year as far as
interesting is a good word to describe it.
As far as things that dropped, and I just want to say that even though we pretty much had episodes that ran without a break, we had no gap and the actual dropping of episodes, but we actually ourselves took off a full kind of 2 weeks to kind of recharge our batteries a little bit. I must say that it was like at first a little weird. Like the first Monday I was like, oh, we're not recording. I was like,
it's like, what do we do with this time?
I know it's become such a routine. I was like, I don't have like my long-standing date with my friend. So I was like, all right,
for the first time ever.
First time. And then when you go in the week 2, and I was like, I don't know if I like not talking to Jackson for 2 weeks. This sucks. I mean, like we of course talked in that time and planned stuff and planned ahead. But yeah, we've had this like routine for the past year, and that was like the longest, in that year that you've been on that we've had like a personal gap of not recording together.
Right.
But it was really good. I think we both really needed it, and like, I think you said offline that it was kind of nice to like not have any responsibilities for a couple of weeks and not have to worry about being somewhere on time or doing something like this on time.
Deadlines, yeah.
Right. Even though we both really, really missed it and we were very excited to get back to it. I think like with anything, it's nice to kind of take a step back and reevaluate and like reset so that you're even more excited to come back with something new. So I think that was a good move on our part today.
I completely agree. And I'm sure by the time the holiday season rolls around at the end of 2024, we'll be saying the exact same thing. But it's like you said, recharging the batteries. It's healthy to do in lots of different avenues of your life. So I'm glad to be back in the routine, but feeling very refreshed after a crazy holiday break and looking forward to chatting about 2023 in today's retrospective episode.
Yeah, for sure. With all that was going on, I guess like the last time we actually recorded something was the week of my birthday. So my birthday was the 17th of December. Right. I think we recorded that Wednesday. That was Black Christmas. That was the last thing that we recorded. So in between all that, I had a birthday. Of course, there was Christmas, and then a lot of stuff in between. And then we just came off of New Year's Eve. I think we both enjoyed ourselves on New Year's
Definitely.
Eve. I was interested because like last night, some of my friends were like, "Oh, like, what are you gonna do tomorrow?" I was like, "Oh, we actually have to record on New Year's Day," and so they were like, "Why would you do that to yourself? You're gonna be like so hungover and not able to do it." But I don't know. I felt really good about it. I was like, "I'll be fine. If anything, it'll just be a nice, relaxing day off, and I will be able to fit this in." So I feel good today. I was like wondering at first if I was going to be like, I was like, why would I like, how like you kind of suggest something like, yeah, I can do it. I totally can do that. I'll be good. I was like wondering if I was going to have one of those moments where it's like,
when the moment gets there, maybe I was like, a little wrong.
I know, like Jackson, I had really lofty goals, and I don't know if I can like, live up to them. But I'm glad that I did. It's actually, I'm really excited to chat it up today. So it's be good.
Yeah. Well, for starters, I wanted to ask. I was thinking of this on Saturday. When I was watching what inevitably ended up being my last watch of 2023, but I was curious to see what was the last movie you got in last year.
The last thing I actually saw in theaters, like I told you, I did see the Iron Claw, which was
yes.
I I I don't know. I was when it was over, and me and my brother like left the theater because we saw it before like the kind of night's festivities for New Year's Eve.
Okay.
Um,
Quite
I was
somber, I imagine.
yeah, I was happy to have like gone to something after that was like very upbeat and a party and fun because the movie was in the best way possible, like it did the job that it was supposed to do, but it was a gut punch
Oh, totally.
by the end of it. And I was only kind of loosely familiar with that story, just like reading up about it, as they announced the movie and kind of like when I
Right.
first saw the first trailer and like read up on the actual family. And I kind of agree with a lot of people who have reviewed it just as an overall true story. It feels like something that you would feel like made up for a movie because it's so
Right.
it you know how did that happen to
These tragedies keep coming and
one family and like
right.
over and
Yeah.
it's so like I still like even though I read up on this and knew it was true, like the whole time I was watching I was like that I mean the universe dealing them these blows over and over again. I
Right.
was like, Jesus. I was like, what was the point? What were you supposed to learn from this? Like, when stuff like that happens to people, you're like, when they tell you like all things happen for a reason, you're like, well, what was the lesson here for these this particular family? Because it was just like, yeah, it
Yeah.
just it's so surreal and it feels kind of yeah, like you're just left out of it. Like, wow, I don't know how they could handle
Mm.
everything that was thrown at them. And then as a moviegoer, when you're watching it, you feel like you've gone through these rounds with them.
Right.
So it also, when it was over, I felt like it felt very personal. Like you really had kind of dealt with like these tragedies with them. And I had like a couple issues with like it felt a little long at times and all that, but
Yep.
the overall impact of it, I was really amazed with how much it stayed with me when it was over, and
Okay.
kind of like, and it couldn't really get it off of me for a little bit.
Totally.
Even like when we were talking at the party, we talked about it a little bit, and I didn't want to give like too much away when we were talking about the movie, but yeah, that it had this like kind of lingering effect on that was really powerful. Even though this is not a happy film by any means.
By
So
any
there,
means, no, there's really no
so
happy resolution. It's just you're with this family as they go through various tragedies over the decades. What do you think of Zac Efron? I'm curious to see. We haven't
I
chatted about
know
him.
we've been talking about
Where do you
because
land?
I put that thing on my story because I hadn't seen it yet, and he has a groundswell of support like via like film Twitter. Everyone since the movie came out were like, oh, he deserves to get an Oscar nomination. He should
Mm,
definitely sneak in. It's a very competitive best actor race. Um, how I feel about it, if he got in, I wouldn't be mad. I think he was really good. He was,
mm.
I mean, like it's probably the best performance of his career
Oh,
by
certainly.
by far.
By wide
Um,
margin, I agree.
like a 100% committed performance, and it kind of proves like what I've always kind of liked about him over time, and like the stuff that he does. Like even when he's been in stuff that's not great, it seems like he has always tried to personally better himself as an actor and challenge himself as an actor.
Mm,
He's the kind of person that could easily ride on his good looks and just do that. And
right.
I don't think I don't think he wants. And he's always wanted to like improve himself, and that is what the impression I got watching this. This is like a good, natural, big step to like what he can do, and like now I think it's kind of like sky's the limit on what he can do. Like now I can see him playing anything at this point.
Right. This feels like like a pivotal moment of his career where it's really out there now that this guy actually can act. He's not just a former Disney star that has just kind of kept on with acting and done smaller projects, but
Yeah,
I think Zach's really like proven himself as an actor. Certainly, I know he had some buzz around his performance as Ted Bundy a few years ago. I personally didn't think that movie was like fantastic. His performance wasn't bad, but I didn't overall think that was a standout by any means. This
right.
though, his performance in the Iron Claw, certainly a pivotal moment for him going forward. I think this will really put him out there on the map as a serious actor worthy of agreed. Like I wouldn't be upset if he had a nomination come his way either. Although I do think that I don't know, it'd be tough though. I don't know who you take out, but I'm sure we'll be discussing that
Yeah,
soon.
I was trying to like think of it. I mean, and some of this is based on just like the odds or like kind of like what other people or thinking who might be in the 5, and who would have to be kind of knocked out in order for him to
Right.
make it in. Now I know when we talked about it, like you weren't like you thought he was really good, but you weren't like completely 100% sold on if he would like really get in the 5. Like you were like,
Right.
like
Now,
you seem like you would be upset if he did, but you're like, there's other people that might have a bigger edge
yeah,
than him to get in.
what do you think about that?
I think so too, and it's not because I don't think he's deserving of being there if he got in. I just think it is really tight.
It comes down to the how many great performances there were this year. It's always going to be a tight race, but all the power to him if he gets a nomination. I wouldn't want that taken away from him by any means. But if I were to guess, I don't really know if I think definitively one way or another yet that he's like a shoe-in for a nom. Whereas I know certain other actors like Cillian Murphy, absolutely.
Yeah, he's in there for sure. Paul Giamatti will be in there, I think, for
definitely.
sure. And then to knock him out, to knock someone out, I know people have like suggested like DiCaprio doesn't really need to be there for Killers of the Flower Moon. Like maybe you could like X him out, and that's another way for Zac Efron to get in. But Andrew Scott, for All of Us Strangers, he's built a lot of buzz too. He's one other name that has generated more buzz than Zac Efron since that movie came out. Coleman Domingo's on the outlier for Rustin. He's one of the people that could sneak in that 5. Barry Keoghan is another one for Saltburn.
Yeah, I would love to see a nomination for Saltburn.
That might sneak in too. So it's a really, and this is just more of like there's really a amazing lineup of lead male performances. It's not so much that Zac Efron didn't do good enough. It's just heavily competitive in that category. Now, I mean, I get it. I think some of the film Twitter stuff for Zac Efron is like they want their boy Troy Bolton from High School Musical to get an Oscar nomination. That would sound like that would be like music theory. My friend Kayla, that's all she talked about at the party. At the party, she was like, I would like live and breathe to see Troy Bolton get an Oscar nomination. It's like she loves High School Musical.
I think he has it in him.
Yeah, and she brought up something interesting that it was an interesting comparison because at first I was like, oh, I don't really get that, but I kind of do get it. She was saying like she kind of compared him a bit to Jamie Foxx, where he is kind of like multi-faceted, multi-talented in a lot of areas where he can sing, he can dance, he can do comedy, he can do drama.
Right.
So he kind of has his eggs in a lot of baskets, and I didn't really like think of it that way. At first I was like, wow, you can't compare him to like Jamie Foxx, but then I guess like in a way he checks all those boxes. So he really can, at this point, after watching this movie, he can do whatever he wants now. And like he has because he's proven to have really great comedic chops. He's proven more so now that he has dramatic chops.
Yes, which will take him farther, I think.
Yeah, and he's done the whole like musical thing. I mean, either you accept the cheesiness of High School Musical. If you don't, he also did it in Hairspray back in the day, which is like a big movie musical that came out. And so he's kind of then The Greatest Showman, he was in that, so he proved that he kind of
I forgot about The Greatest Showman, right? So he's still got his singing chops then, does he?
Yeah,
because I never saw that. Okay,
so like he can do it all. So I think that's what this kind of proves. And I actually am like someone posted on Instagram. They were here for like this kind of Zac Efron like renaissance, basically.
Nice.
And I was like, I guess he is gonna have him. You know what I mean? Like, what was the year the year before? Like, this was someone that was in like the Firestarter remake, and we were like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's right. That was 2022.
And I remember when that movie came out, because he's not bad in it. I just remember being like, Zac Efron needs like a better agent or something to like get him in like to get him in other stuff. And then I remember when they announced this movie, and I read the premise, I was like, oh, that could be really. I mean, it's A24. It could be really good for him if it's done right. So that maybe that can be the thing. And now we're here, like a year later, and it's out, and it has built a considerable amount. I was asked to by friends like, why isn't it generating more awards buzz? And I kind of want to lay the blame on A24 a bit, because they released it kind of late,
Christmas Day, right?
Yeah, and it didn't really hit the festival circuit. This is the kind of movie that you would think they would
totally,
especially considering like the reviews that came out of it. I mean, I think it has like an 89% Rotten Tomatoes now. This is like seriously an awards contender for them. They could have easily propped it up a bit more. But it's not like a total like loss just yet. There have been movies and actors and actresses who have snuck in at the last minute,
Right.
And got a nomination. I mean, if Andrea Riseborough can sneak in a nomination at the last minute like she did last year, maybe someone like Zac Efron can. I know another good comparison where like they were like he might be like the Paul Mescal of this year, like with After Sun, which he snuck in at the last minute and got a nomination. So it's possible, but yeah, I was wondering what you thought about the like maybe the A24 shoot himself in the foot a bit by not giving it more of a push and releasing it earlier in the awards season.
I think absolutely they should take part of the blame for if that's what they maybe they didn't. Who knows at the studio if they're. I'm trying to think when you were mentioning this if there was any other massive A24 release that maybe they want to put more stock in for like nominate certain nominations, and maybe that's why that they didn't think that they had such a winner on their hands, that they were waiting for another one of the releases earlier in the year to maybe like be their front runner for certain noms.
Do you think it was Bo Was Afraid? Do you think they were relying on that? I mean, that was really early in the release.
Yeah, that was like March, right?
But yeah, I mean that was my thought though, man. I was like, hey, I mean, A24 is smart. Like, it's a really smart studio, and like they seem like they really do know what they have usually, and you know what they're selling. I mean, I still am kind of like scratching my head as to why it was released so late and why it didn't do. I heard some stories that like it wasn't quite finished in time for the festival circuit, but I don't know it.
Perhaps.
But late December for a release like this is that you would think they would know they would have buzz on it, that they would try to release it a little earlier.
They did do this for The Whale last year, and that ended up with a Brendan Fraser lead actor.
He won.
So maybe they just felt confident.
Speaking of another actor renaissance, yeah.
Maybe they just thought that was a tried and true time to release a movie, and it ended up paying off for them last year with Brendan Fraser's acting win. Maybe they felt like this is a winning formula for them, this release slot. But I agree, like there wasn't crazy marketing for this movie, and the festival circuit, it not having much of a presence there is another head scratching sort of decision. But I mean, who knows? Hindsight's 2020. Maybe something will come out in the future that'll make sense. But in any case, glad to see the movies at least critically doing well.
Doing pretty decently financially. I mean, this isn't like something that was like gonna like blow the like doors off the box office, but it hung in there as a smaller movie during the kind of Christmas corridor where most movies get a little bit of a push because like of the holiday break, and like they tend to do a little better than they probably normally would, and it is holding up in there alongside some bigger movies. Other movies have not done incredibly well during the Christmas corridor. Like I think someone like Warner Brothers did the whole like, we're just gonna throw Aquaman and Lost Kingdom out there and hope it makes as much money as it can. And right now we have a $200+ million movie that's only made about $77 million, and we're at New Year's Day. So that Christmas corridor is that holiday corridor is now closing, and it's not going to make much more money.
I don't think there was any hope or care for Aquaman 2 from the studio personally. Like I think after The Flash bombed and fizzled at the box office, and this is well after they'd announced their new universe that's premiering in 2025. I feel like this is just something left over they had on the slate. As it's no secret, the production issues that this movie suffered, I feel like this is just one last push, just this last blemish to get off of their release calendar before they go on to bigger and better things. I don't know what is going to become of Aquaman 2, but I don't imagine many of it will be promising. I haven't heard a single really good thing about it from anybody that's reviewed it.
Yeah, me
and that doesn't come as a surprise either. So like that's unfortunate.
But I think the closest I saw was like my brother saw. I had no desire to see it. I had no desire to see it. And my brother
I'm like honestly upset that James Wan did this. Like I wish he had spent that time doing something else. It's a shame.
Yeah, I guess the only like blessing in disguise is that he is done with it, and I hope he goes back to basics and maybe focus on horror.
Give us another Malignant. Or
like I said, I didn't see it. My brother saw it. And even my brother, it was like faint praise. That was like the only like kind of positive. It was kind of like
even the trailers don't look like they're trying.
When someone says it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but
Ooh,
that's like
it's a low bar.
a low bar. I
Yeah.
guess the only like upside for Warner Brothers is they released 3 movies over the holiday break. Color Purple, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and Wonka.
Wonka.
And
Okay.
and collectively they've made money. So like there's one way to spin the Warner Brothers box office story if you just ignore the fact that one of those movies is a big budget comic book movie that is going to be financial disaster. But
The
in the
last
case of
one of the year.
Wonka is doing well. It tricked people into seeing it by not really focusing on in the trailers that hey, this is a musical. Like there were some people that were like,
I can't believe that
shocked.
still.
Yeah, the good old bait and switch, but it worked. The people are enjoying it.
Honestly, good move.
$143.6 million domestically so far.
Okay.
Also, the Color Purple opened on Christmas Day, had a massive $18 million Christmas Day gross. Now a lot of it was like very like front loaded. I think a lot of people that wanted to see it saw it on Christmas Day because it did kind of fall off a bit post Christmas Day, but
Okay.
still $44 million so far, and another movie musicals at a time when like movie musicals have not lately done really well. So now we've had 2 that are doing pretty all right at the box office, and the Color Purple's box office journey now will depend on can it. It was people were kind of scratching their heads that it didn't get a Golden Globe nomination for Best Musical or Comedy, but it still has a shot with SAG and the Oscars. So that's another way for that movie to kind of hold on post this kind of Christmas break.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes. And I'm not gonna spend any time on this, but I was trying to figure out like, is the romantic comedy back? Anyone But You did okay.
Okay.
But considering all the hoopla and our 2 stars are so hot, are they really dating in real life? Let's make them think that we're dating, and let's focus on how hot we are. All that promotion all year. I would say that it entirely worked.
Right.
$24.8 million so far, but like it's not a failure, but it's not huge either.
Considering the marketing behind it, because this is actually one of the, I think, more marketed movies of the last few months. Even like you said, back to the beginning of the year, I remember we were seeing promo shots from that movie while they were still filming on location, and then there was the whole, mini scandal about our Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney actually dating, even though they both have spouses or partners. Then definitely in December and November, seeing a lot more trailers and TV spots and stuff for this movie. So that's interesting that it's not doing. Good to see that it's not a complete failure because rom-coms do hold an important spot in the market. But yeah, definitely considering the marketing behind it, interesting. I would have thought more, but also just I don't know about December and rom-coms if that's the time of year to really promote them.
A really weird time. I mean, on the one hand, I kind of got the whole like, let's see how it will do over the holiday stretch, and there's that excuse to kind of put it out there, but. It also, like I said, we talked about the trailer when it came out here. I wasn't blown away by what I saw, but like my whole thing was like this felt more like it's probably would have killed it more like on Valentine's Day weekend or something.
Yeah. But instead we get a different Sydney Sweeney movie on Valentine's Day with Madam Web in 2024. So maybe they didn't want that was a factor. God, that'll no doubt be even worse. But on the note, while we're
a preview of our least anticipated movies of 2024,
if there was a list, that would be on there for sure.
But while she was laying that stuff on thick, promoting it still. Like I heard a soundbite where she was talking about Glenn Powell, and she's like, "Oh, he's like one of the best people I've ever known." I was like, "Wow, you guys, we get it."
Jeez.
We now know that you guys aren't really dating. Don't think you fooled around.
Not publicly.
This whole,
anyway.
but this whole let's tease the audience with like, did we or have we or haven't we?
Right.
I was like, now it rings so like manufactured and fake now. That's like, we get it.
Yeah,
you're hot, but that's not enough to sell your movie on.
No, clearly. But how else do you really market a rom-com? Really, it seems like they don't have too much in their toolbox. So I don't blame them for doing that and kind of letting the media take that away and keep people guessing. It's good word of mouth for your movie, but I don't know. There's only so many ways you can market a movie like that, but
Yeah.
While we're on the topic though of box office, I did want to throw at you another little version of the three strikes game. I got in front of me here the top 10 highest grossing domestic releases of 2023, and I wanted to see if you could stack them up there with three chances. So if you get three on there that are wrong, that'll be a loss. But if we can get them all in there in a timely fashion, we see how you do. So we got 10 movies, domestic box office 2023. Which ones are the highest grossers? There's definitely a couple sneaky ones I'll be interested to see if you get, but some very obvious ones too. But yeah, in honor of 2023 being over, let's see how you can place.
All right, 2023, the year of the big budget movie, 200 million plus on several movies when that wasn't entirely necessary.
Right.
So I'm guessing Guardians Volume 3 is on that.
Yes, Guardians 3 made it in the number 4 spot, which Marvel's highest grossing movie that year. Pretty good company to be in, and the 4th highest. I'm not sure. I don't have the total gross in front of me, just domestic, but it did 358 million in domestically, which is quite good.
And one of the, I think, the lone bright Marvel spot financially,
exactly,
of their releases, because you have that, and then you have something like the Marvels, which is their least domestic earner ever.
Marvel $1 billion club this year, which is quite crazy. Yeah,
which is interesting to think about. All right, Barbie would have to be on that.
Of course, yes. Barbie, as of today, anyway, is in the number 1 spot, highest grossing domestic movie from 2023. So you got your number 1 and your number 4. And Barbie raked in just over 630 million at the domestic box office, which is pretty crazy.
And that phenomenon is probably something we will be talking about today as we look back at 2023, because that is I don't know if we'll ever see anything quite like that and the Barbenheimer phenomenon again, but that works really well this summer. So yeah, our girl did really well, and I guess I will piggyback off that with, I guess, Oppenheimer would be on that.
Listen. In your number 5 spot at 326 million of the domestic. So we got 1, 4, and 5. Good work, no strikes so far. You know your box office, I know you do. There's a couple in there though that I don't think I would have guessed if I was in your shoes. So I'm interested to see. There's a couple sneaky ones.
I'm trying to think of what else came out this summer and the beginning of the year. Is Indiana Jones in there? Or, I know it didn't make a ton of money, but it did crack.
That would be your first X for Indiana Jones. Did not crack the top 10 in the number 12 spot. Just below another one.
Did me dirty. Did me dirty. Did me dirty. Damn, that barely. Okay, well, that's right. So that makes me question what else I want to pick. So that would mean that Fast 10 wouldn't be on that list either. But I'm going to throw it in there just in case. But I think that is just missed it.
Fast X came in at the number 18 spot, which would bring you your second X. Yeah. But I'll give you a hint. There are a couple other, besides Barbie, $1 billion movies this year that would be on this list. So think about what movies made billions. The B Club this year. And that'll give you a couple, maybe.
All right. You're a good friend, and I can now read you the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes, that placed in number 2 with $574 million domestically, which, thinking about the just seeing the difference between Barbie and Super Mario. So Barbie with 636 and Super Mario Brothers at 574. That's quite the gap between the 1 and 2 spot. So Barbie really pulled ahead with a huge lead at the domestic box office. So yeah, now you got your 1, 2, 4, and 5 spots filled with 2 X's. So you got one more incorrect guess before I'll read off the rest of the list.
Shit, do we have another $1 billion earner in that I didn't name?
Yeah, I believe so. Although it's kind of tricky because the figures are across 2 different years. If that, I don't want to say, I might be giving something away here.
That Avatar.
Yes, Avatar at the number 7 spot. So this must be because I can't remember when it released in 2022. It must have been December as well,
December,
right?
Yeah, December.
Because in 2023, according to Box Office Mojo, anyway, it at the domestic box office, it brought in 283 million. So quite a bit of that money was from 2022. That's not accounted for here, but it still was the 7th highest grossing domestic movie for 2023. So you got your 7th spot filled.
That's crazy when like a movie from last year outgross some bigger
I know,
movies from
right?
this
Most,
year.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. 5 left to name off here, and 1 more incorrect guess.
All right, let me see what we can do here. Fuck, Spider-Man. Across the Spider-Verse, is that on
Across the Spider-Verse is your number 3 spot. Good job. And that brought in 381 million. So almost $200 million between the number 2 and number 3 spot with Super Mario Brothers and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is insane. So yeah, 381 million brings it to the third place. So you got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and your 7. So 4 left. Good work. I need you to go 4 for 4.
And what I like about this game so far is that you dropped a little hint. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm picking up what he's putting down.
Doing my best to give you a little shove.
The Little Mermaid on the list?
That was one of the surprise ones. Yes, it is. It's in the number 6 spot, just below Oppenheimer. I wouldn't have guessed.
Wow, I wouldn't. That was like more of a wild guess rather than like.
Well, it's a good one. Sure. It brought in just shy of 300 million at the domestic box office with 298 million, right underneath Oppenheimer. So yeah, good guess, good job. You got your. Now we're just missing the 8, 9, 10 spots.
Oh, okay. Mission Impossible.
That will bring you your third X. I'm looking to see where.
Fuck.
Mission Impossible came in at number 13 with 172 million. But I don't blame you because there's a couple of tricky ones in here, and I wouldn't have thought in your number 8 spot is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and why I wouldn't have thought that.
And wow, that was like a failure,
right? Because it's a failure, and like it lost the money, yet it still brought in a lot of dollars domestically. So that brought in 214 million domestic box office to be in the number 8 spot, and your number 9. This might have been one I might have guessed, but I'm sure you'll know when I say it. But John Wick 4 is in your 9 spot.
All right, I was like thinking that, and I was like, I don't know if it made enough money to like crack it. I knew it made money.
Cracked the 9 spot. Yeah.
Wow.
Number 10 though is insane. Like I remember when this movie had come out and it was doing surprisingly well. I wouldn't have thought by the end of the year it would have cracked the top 10. But Sound of Freedom came in at 184 domestic, which is quite impressive for that movie.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that I did not see it. I did watch the phenomenon they kind of created over the summer as something that was kind of promoted just within the kind of demographic that would go see that movie. Its own little kind of groundswell of like, word of mouth. And one way or the other, I mean, I had no desire to see it, but I was impressed with like, wow, they actually what they were able to do over a summer where it's crowded with bigger movies, and that was able to do as well as it did. But I did not know that it cracked.
Yeah, right. Very impressive, and to have ridden that out and kept that spot throughout the remainder of the year is I don't think anyone would have guessed that. Let alone, I don't think anyone really had that movie on their radar before 2023. So it goes to show, a few movies each year will crack that spot that are just kind of make games like this interesting because it's not as cut and dry as you'd think, but. Yeah, fun little game. I'm sure that we'll be doing some different topics with this variation of this game going forward. I think it's really fun to pitch to you, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to.
I like this game. It's cool. It's very challenging. A part of the joy is like you watching, like, I wonder if he's gonna get it.
Right. It's easy when I have the answers in front of me, but I keep thinking like how difficult it would actually be not having the list in front of you.
But
but a good effort. Yeah.
And also surprising, like the last one, like when we did the Ridley Scott one, and like I was like, Hannibal? I forgot about
Hannibal.
Yeah,
exactly.
It was in that his biggest earners that I need to name. So so definitely some surprises. The Little Mermaid was like a wild guess.
Yeah, in the number 6 spot.
Crazy. Yeah, I was like, because I think they expected that to even make more money than it actually did. So that's why I was like, could be there, could not be there. So that was more of a throwing my darts and see what landed.
Yeah. Well, good job.
I guess since we were on the topic of talking about you mentioned the stuff with Ant-Man and it not being financially as successful as they thought. They lost
Right.
money. I guess one of the, as we talk about like big movie stories from 2023, which is what this kind of episode is going to be about. And this won't necessarily be in particular like order of like, in the year or whatever. We're kind of spitballing on like
Right.
what really stood out to us. But I guess one of the big things that we kind of started seeing even before this year, but I guess became more obvious this year, is Marvel is not as bulletproof as we once thought. And I think that was kind of a big thing that came out of this year where, you had something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was like had a huge budget, didn't even break even with its worldwide total factored in. Guardians did well because they were really promoted it as a self-contained thing. It was the last one,
Right.
not and it was it was good, so they were able to like ride that momentum. But then you get to the Marvels, and there's a whole lot of factors as to why that didn't work.
Right.
The strike, it just not being up to par compared to other Marvel releases.
Yes.
Um, and I guess also adding to that too, even though we don't really cover like TV a lot
I was
exclusively.
about to bring that up if you didn't, but yeah,
But
their shows too.
yeah, like Secret Invasion kind of came out the gate with its first few episodes getting really good reviews, but then when the other episodes dropped, it became one of the lowest reviewed
yeah,
shows of their lineup so far, and didn't do all that well, streaming wise either as far as views. So like, I guess what I'll throw to you, like seeing what Marvel kind of went through. I mean, even if I can't even think if there's something else I forgot. I guess we can kind of I also mention, even stuff that didn't come out, like Daredevil, basically the TV show they were working on, like got rid of their showrunners, their writers, kind of scrapped what they were entirely doing and like started from scratch. So there's all these other things that are kind of happening with the MCU, and I kind of was wondering how you felt about like them not having as strong of an armor, I guess, as we as we once thought. I mean, I know that some people low key enjoy seeing like it needs to be like taken down a peg or two. So some people are kind of low key enjoying it a little bit. But where are you at on that?
So I would put myself in that category of people that really were looking forward to the MCU being not the MCU, but Marvel Studios being humbled a bit.
Get down there a little bit.
They've had their time in the spotlight, and I have had complaints with the studio, like directly, even around when they were in their heyday in the Endgame times. Like I've enjoyed a fair amount of their movies, but I felt like they really had this chokehold on the industry for so long, and gotta give props to Steven Spielberg, who I can't remember when he made this quote that one day the superhero movies will go the way of the Western, and he had sort of predicted that they won't, they'll follow the cycle of any trend in Hollywood or anywhere, where things will have their peaks and then inevitably decline. And not that they'll ever go away. I'm sure that will never be the case, but I'm excited to see a time where the playing field is a little bit more even in terms of our genres at the movies. And it's undoubtedly, regardless of how I feel about the superhero movie genre more broadly, you can't deny it's quite impressive the run that they've had, the chokehold they've had since Iron Man in 2008 up until I would say 2021 was I think where we started to see the cracks in the armor, starting with like Eternals, not nearly to the degree
that
we see it in 2023.
A great start to kind of see for me when this started.
Yeah,
like when you start to see like
people will go back to that as the example when the first movie that really and even Black Widow maybe didn't.
Yeah, we're like, reviews weren't that great. Like that was like one of the first one of their releases in a long time that creatively from a critic's standpoint didn't hit. So that was like you have something like that, but then it kind of like softens the blow because you get like No Way Home, and you're like, all right, well that did really well, made a lot of money, but like that was creatively and financially in its own ballpark where it didn't really feel like an MCU thing and more like a we love Spider-Man thing, and that's why that did as well as it did.
Exactly.
Again, a bit more self-contained, much like Guardians Volume 3, where it felt more like its own thing rather than like a connective tissue to the greater MCU, which is probably why No Way Home did so well.
Certainly.
and even during that period, then after that though, you have like Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, which made money, but even creatively, some people didn't and love it.
Yep.
And that, I guess we kind of like see that a bit where
2023 is the year I think that
yeah,
undoubtedly something is not working, and audiences are now on board with this. They're not showing up in droves to these movies as they did in the past. That's why we've seen a lot of these movies not reach the goals like financially that they thought were such a shoe in before. Like I said earlier, there's not been an MCU movie that hit $1 billion this year. I'm not sure if there were in 2022 or not. I can't remember. Where No Way Home probably did. I'm guessing, was that 2022?
yeah,
In any
so that
case,
did really well. Yeah,
things are inevitably have to change. And I think all that being said, while it's been a disastrous year for Marvel broadly at the box office, I think they're in a position now to really we've said this on the episode before, covered this in previous episodes, to really recoup and
yeah,
restructure and look at things going forward. We only got one actual MCU release in 2024, and that'll be in July with Deadpool 3. And I think
right,
this is the best spot that they could be in, considering the year that they've had at the box office in
right,
2023. If they had 3 or 4 huge tentpole movies coming out this year, I think this momentum would carry.
yeah,
Also think I'm looking forward to see how there are 3 MCU adjacent Sony partner up Marvel movies are going to do this year. We got Madam Web, which
back
seems
back
that's
on
gonna
Madam Web.
that's gonna hit us in February. Then we've also got Kraven the Hunter, which I think is more towards the summer. I can't remember its exact release date.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then Venom 3. Is that the third one?
yeah,
Yeah. So I'd be interested to see how those do, because I'm sure that the gap in the market of superhero movies will be felt. I think there's only one DC property coming out in 2024 with a Joker
Joker.
sequel.
Yeah,
I think that's the only one. So maybe that will lend more people to go see these Sony Marvel movies to make up the gap in superhero content, or maybe we'll just continue to see a decline of superhero
yeah,
love to, even further. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on that we'll be talking about later in the year. But I'm okay with how things are going for them. I think that this step down, it was inevitable, and I had been sort
yeah,
of wanting that for this studio for a while. Not that I want to see them crash and burn. I still want well made superhero movies to be made and good
yeah,
stories to be told. And I think that finally we've had enough of one good thing, and too much content has really led to a sort of a downfall, and
yeah,
things will need to turn around. I think hopefully if the people over there making these decisions at Marvel Studios are listening and hearing the messages that are being said to them, they will take this news and sort of focus on quality over quantity, which I know has been also mentioned, not breaking any new
yeah,
ground by suggesting that. But 2024 and 2025 even more so will be interesting to look at and see how they're dealing with what
right,
2023 gave them, which no matter where you spin it, was not a good
yeah.
year to be the studio. Guardians of the Galaxy notwithstanding.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is it was a good time for them to like pump the brakes a little bit,
Yeah,
and the whole delays and everything were kind of like a blessing in disguise now, where it's like
that's
they had to
right.
push stuff back. So like that's the only reason that we have like their only release will be Deadpool 3 in July. They do have another show, Echo, that drops this month, but that's a self-contained
Right.
show and not really a connective tissue to the greater MCU. Um,
Okay.
so that I actually like that they aren't like dominating the release calendar. And like,
That's
hey,
what I'm
I
saying.
I think you and I are a little. I love the Marvel movies when they're really
Right.
really good.
Right.
I don't really mind that we had a lot of them, but once you start seeing like kind of creative ripples and that or I think what they did so well is what is their biggest detriment now, where they were so good at building a greater universe in the beginning, and
Mm,
now I also feel like that has kind of been their downfall a bit by these kind of pre-planned, like this movie connects to this movie, that movie connects to that movie.
yes.
That I no matter how great Kevin Feige is as a studio head and the main boss that is over all this stuff, I think it is near impossible to really oversee creatively everything that they were putting out
Exactly. And
in
that
a way,
shows.
yeah, in a way that was like you're putting all of your all of your attention into each production. That's like hard, completely hard when you're doing that across movies and TV shows. Like I think we mentioned before, I think the biggest issue that they've had was leaning in on their streaming shows and also trying to connect those to the movies, and that makes it just a lot. It makes it a lot harder on the fans. It's like, do I have to watch this in order to see this? And it becomes more of a chore and work rather than an enjoyable
something that movies should never
experience.
be and should never feel like you're doing this for work or like you're doing a chore. And I mean, it makes sense that it's gone this way. I don't really think it's the studio's fault, but you can only put so much content out there before to keep up with what's coming out. You're going to have to see such and such projects that lead up to this stuff. So I think they did it masterfully in their first 3 phases, and that will be the textbook example of universe building going forward to future filmmakers who are looking to build this huge film universe. But after, I think we've realized 3 phases might be the limit, depending on how many movies are in there. But I mean, for all the negative things you could say that happened, the studio's decisions this year, there's 2 good things you could say about the decision making prior to this year. It just ultimately, I think this was the kick in the butt that they really needed. I guess we'll have to see what they do with this before we really, lend our final assessment. But I'm interested to be along for the ride. I also think, streaming, that also needs to be figured out too. Their shows, and I wouldn't even be opposed to like a ground level restart, focus on different stories, rebuild a different universe. I think that'd be fun, but I don't know if we'll necessarily get that anytime soon. But that being said, I haven't seen an MCU movie in theaters in a while. I don't think since Black Widow, but I think I'll actually turn up for Deadpool 3 because I like the first couple. I mean, having Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine will be pretty sweet. So I'll actually probably be there in July when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And I have high hopes for it.
One of those movies that, if done right, it could really kind of build up goodwill again with people who are kind of like
that's what I'm
off
thinking.
Of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's the legacy of that movie inevitably has to be, and we'll know soon enough in 6 or 7 months if that is what happens. But I have really high hopes for that movie, like box office wise. I think it being the only MCU movie means a lot of people will actually have had 6+ months off of MCU content, like at least in the theaters. I think that will be enough to pull some people out of the shadows, come back and see something. And I think the Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds team up is too good to pass up. I think a lot of people will come out of retirement to catch them in action too. So yeah, that'll be July. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right. What do you got? Do you have another story that you want to throw out there as something that you kind of look back on in 2023 as being a significant?
Certainly, I would say like on the other side of the coin here, looking at DC, I guess it's still in the grand scheme of superhero movies in the industry and their role, but the DCEU now, as we mentioned, with the release of Aquaman, is in the Lost Kingdom. Aquaman 2. So with that, that is now the end of the DCEU, kind of going out with a whimper, it seems. But I think that is a culturally significant thing to have happened, like in the realm of the movie industry, because this series started all the way back 10 years ago with Man of Steel,
which is crazy because that's not really that long in the grand scheme of things. I mean, not that long, and a handful of movies that were mostly mediocre. I mean, you had some bright spots in there. Wonder Woman is good. The first Shazam is fun. Everyone didn't love it, and I think, but Birds of Prey was fine. I thought that was good. Better than most of their movies. As you can tell, I feel like I'm struggling to like that was which
James Gunn's Suicide Squad was fun.
Squad was good, yeah.
I never saw Snyder's Justice League cut, but
and then you go to stuff like Man of Steel, where it's like that was fine, and then when you start naming more of the movies, it's like it's okay,
right?
And then it's just bad.
But so inevitably, I think the DCEU will be the opposite, and also textbook, but for different reasons, how not to build your universe, and it's just like. So sad, I guess, how this entire series, if you will call it, universe building, like came to be, and how it started and how it ended. It didn't start on a particularly great note either. Yeah, Man of Steel is like a competently made, decent superhero movie, but it definitely felt like they were riding Marvel's coattails and trying to get in on this winning formula, and they came in far too late. Were playing catch up the entire time, had hits and misses all over the place, and just didn't have a coherent storyline to push their movies towards. And it really showed over the last 10 years. And now it's finally over and done with, and it's just seems like it's like your sick old dog is like kind of finally died, and you're like, good, like go to a better place. That's kind of how I feel about the DCEU.
Like we watch you struggle, we watch you
Right.
suffer, and now it's
done.
It's too hard to watch. It's too hard to watch now.
Right.
Let's put it to bed. I guess, like, you know, the DCEU has always had issues, but I guess, like, in addition to like the DCEU being over, part of that big story was watching something like The Flash would have all that like early, like, this is one of the best superhero movies buzz.
Oh my god!
Like when it premiered on a CinemaCon,
yeah,
and then it coming out and having like so reviews, and then turning into a huge financial disaster. Like, even the return of Michael Keaton as Batman wasn't enough to,
which I can't believe even that wasn't enough
to save that. I mean, domestically, I think the movie made about like $108 million somewhere in there.
Let's see, I have it still in front of me. 108. Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
Yeah, so that is not a great domestic gross for a movie that costs upwards of $200 million to make. And in a good example of, like, you know, don't always believe pre-release hype, because some of that is like mostly fans who see that stuff first. Even if they are working within the press industry, a lot of those people that see those movies early, like out of CinemaCon, are generally usually fans of either DC or comic movies, or
right.
You know, so you're getting most of that early reaction and buzz from people who are known to like stuff like that. And that's why I always like give a side eye to that. Like, it's like, all right, I guess that is kind of good. Like, these reviews are kind of good out the gate, but then you also go like, let me see who's like posting their little, like, you know, social media like sound bites, and it's like, oh, that guy really loves DC. Oh, that guy really loves comic movies.
You gotta take it with a grain of salt sometimes. Yeah.
So that was like the start of it. And then, you know, like Aquaman 2 was like delayed and shifted around on the release calendar so much. Like, even on other episodes, I think we both were like, dude, just release it, get it out there, get it over with, because like I'm done hearing about it at this point.
Yeah.
And now they finally did that, and of course it's not going to be financially successful either.
No, that pretty much was predicted well before it even hit theaters, and which is such a shame that, like, such a talented filmmaker like James Wan, this is his movie that he's putting out. This is what he spent so many months working on, for it to just kind of go out like this and be straddled by all these, you know, horrific delay, like impediments to the movie. It's just a shame that, like, that's another reason that I'm like sort of like have this apathy towards like the superhero genre, is because so much great talent is pulled into these movies, and for so long, like, you have entire segments of people's careers that's all they're doing is working on Marvel or DC movies, and when they could be doing the more smaller, grounded movies that make their careers that we love talking about, which, of course, and that's not to discount the role that superhero movies play in the industry, and we love seeing them, but that's another gripe that I have, because now we have this movie that's essentially a waste from a great filmmaker like James Wan, and that sort of thing like pisses me off as a moviegoer. I want to see another Malignant or Conjuring out of him, not Aquaman 2 destined to flop. No one's going to give a shit about it. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, it kind of takes, they are creatively lengthy endeavors. So, like,
exactly.
You know, so, like, you know, if you happen to be tied down to one, and, you know, their hope is like that one becomes successful, then you're then tied down to a sequel and possibly
I get why they
movie.
do it. It's guaranteed work, and I don't blame them for that. And it's paycheck, but
yeah, and this is like a thing that affects like the filmmakers and the actors. I know a lot of people have given a little shade to people like Elizabeth Olsen or Zoe Saldana, who have made comments like they're appreciative of the work they've done with Marvel, but they've also made comments that since it is such a time-consuming part of their work calendar, they miss out on making maybe more smaller passion projects. And I know some people are like, oh, like, complain, you're like in these huge movies, but like, if you are wanting to flex your creative muscles. I can see that being frustrating. That of course
Totally.
they're happy with like what those movies did for their career, but they also want to do other stuff, and that is a fair, I think, thing to say. Even if you are, they are grateful that they're in these hugely successful movies, but I can also see why, since they are so time consuming, they don't really
Mhm.
get to do. Elizabeth Olsen is a great actress, and she showcases that
Exactly.
in those Marvel movies, but she can showcase that even more
Mhm.
uh, in other stuff. I've appreciated like some of her smaller movies a bit more than the work. It actually it makes me appreciate the work she does in the
Totally.
MCU, because it's like, she is a truly great actress. Does put in great work, but they are, you know, big budget movies like this take up so much time, and then when you're tied down to more than one, because
Mm.
it's contracts, whatever. You're right. I think you do lose out acting wise and on the filmmaking side on what these people can be doing with other stuff to flex their creative muscles, because you kind of like you want to see more stuff from them that's not this. And
Exactly.
that and I agree with you with James Wan. I'm not happy to watch any movie fail, but the only upside to it is just like I hope he looks at it as like, man, I'm glad this is over. I want to go back to like what I really loved and what I
Yes.
started doing, and less pressure, like financially, to do a smaller passion project, and that's what I want from him. So I hope he gets to do that now that you know his time with the DCEU is now over, and I guess the overall,
Mm.
RIP to the DCEU. 10 years. I mean, it is. I knew it was 10 years, but we were to wait to really see it
Oh
say 10
man.
years. The number of
It
and
doesn't do
the
it
number of movies,
justice.
and then the number of movies is like, wow, like that's not really that long, and boy, did that not pan out the way that they wanted it to. It more of a woo,
Exactly. And
overall,
just I know
overall,
hindsight's 2020. It's easier to look back at something and pick it apart for what it became, and easy to say that versus when you're studying something as it's happening, or even before when something's in development. But it's just crazy to me how such a bankable litany of IPs with Batman, Superman, Flash, Aquaman,
Wonder
Wonder
Woman,
Woman,
yeah,
and all the other characters notwithstanding, and not to be able to create a multi-billion-dollar franchise out of these characters together in one cohesive universe. That sounds like it's just a money printing machine. So for it to go as poorly as it did over the course of the last 10 years, goes to show Aeon, it makes the MCU seem more impressive, because obviously these things are not as easy as they seem to build.
right.
And I think we'll make a very interesting like case study for future film students looking at topics like this. I think for people, I'm excited for the people that discover this, like people that are born in the future, looking back at what is this little
Yeah.
pocket of 10 years with these DC movies and what happened here. I think
And
that'll
what did
be
they do wrong?
make for
Yeah, I mean,
fantastic study material.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we don't love. This is not fun to like kind of shit on something. I mean, this is what we were dealt. This is what they gave us, and
Right.
I think if you were to ask most people, they would say that it
Hmm.
was more of a whimper than a success. And even when you pick out something like Wonder Woman, it's almost like you're like, hey, like I found the good one, and it's almost like
Right.
like you, and it almost sounds like I loved Wonder Woman, but like the more you kind of like mention it, it's like, yeah, they had a good one in there, like a
Right.
couple. And it's
Every
almost
so
like
often, every third movie's
it's
decent.
almost like you're like struggling to say something nice.
Right.
uh,
Which is
and
not what you want to be able to say.
yeah, and that's how I came out of that. Yeah, the lesson to be learned from this is don't rush things. Let things take its time. Everything doesn't also have to be a connective universe either. So
True. Look at the standalone DC movies that are coming out with Matt Reeves'
yeah,
Batman verse and the Joker movies, which I mean still could be maybe brought to get, probably not, but those movies
yeah,
are doing great. And I love DC properties, and those are exactly how I want them to be handled. I think that is really the best place for DC right now is in their standalones. But of course, we do have the DC universe, rebooting in
yeah,
2025 to look forward to, which of course, like I am looking forward to see how it starts off. I'm going to go in with bated breath
yeah,
because James Gunn, as much as I do think he's a good filmmaker, I am a little bit weary about him going all in on this, and I don't think that
yeah,
he's like a bulletproof filmmaker. I think his movies still have flaws. Even his good Suicide Squad movie. Like I would like to see still like a more darker, realistic approach to his universe more than the silly, goofy style that he adopts. But it's exciting that things are starting from the ground up, which is what I kind of want for another certain superhero studio. But it'll be nice to, go in with a fresh, clean slate for the DC movies.
Do you think announcing what the new DCU was going to be under James Gunn was like the kind of final nail in the coffin for what was going to be the remaining releases from their DCEU before, that? Do you think that killed it officially?
Yeah, to what degree, like how much blame would I give it? I don't know if I could quantify it, but a significant amount for sure. I think that absolutely didn't do them any favors at all. And I still don't know if I have a reason as to why they couldn't just wait for the end of the year to really announce it. If it was just James Gunn wanting to hit the ground running with his new position as I don't even know what he is. What his position at DC?
I guess he's like he's a co-head of like the DC studio. So
right, DC Studios.
Him and Peter Safran are like in charge of it. So
I get wanting to, have your backers, your investors, like know that you're working on something after getting appointed to that. But I don't know if he just was so excited about what he has coming that he couldn't keep his mouth shut for a few months, or if that was some sort of strategic play that didn't work out, or maybe it did work out. Maybe they were just looking to get these movies off the slate and start fresh as soon as they could, but they definitely left some box office dollars behind, I think, by announcing this and thus nullifying the other 3 movies, because we didn't even talk about Blue Beetle in there too. That
which fantastic. It didn't do great, which I did enjoy it though. I mean,
that would be critically better than its box office run for sure.
That would be what I would call a win, at least creatively, that they released in that pattern. But I mean, what that kind of told a lot of people when they did the announcement, because they did the announcement ahead of Shazam: Fury of the Gods, was it felt like that movie, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman 2, it was almost like, what's the point if they're not going to matter?
Yeah.
They try to save face a little bit with Blue Beetle being like, no, it's kind of like the official start of the new DCU. Like, we're going to use him.
That was
again.
A whole weird.
So, and that felt more like oh wow, look, Shazam and the Flash failed, so maybe let's not say Blue Beetle isn't a part of this universe. Let's try to stress that, like, hey, it is. It felt like a last ditch effort to me to.
I'm hoping that's what it was.
Make it matter,
The implications of that, if that's not the case, are a little weird to me. If just to randomly say, like, we're starting fresh in 2025. This will be our Superman Legacy will be our first movie. Then to correct, quote unquote, and magically throw in, Psych, it's actually Blue Beetle. By the way, go see it in theaters while it's out. If that's not actually the case, I'm going to be at the kid. I don't know why you would, again, shoot yourself in the foot that way. But in any case, it's behind us. I'm looking forward to a break also from this universe too, and start fresh in 2025. I might actually, since being in this role and discussing movies on the podcast, I think I'll be more inclined to actually follow those movies like the DCU in 2025 from the start instead of like jumping in, and because there was plenty DCEU movies I didn't watch, and by the time these releases this summer came around, I just couldn't be bothered because I'm so far behind. But it'll be nice to start from scratch and actually follow the makings of this universe when it inevitably hits the screens. I just hope that they are everything that they can be, and it's nice that there is a good filmmaker who is passionate about this material that is making these decisions and headlining these movies. Let's just hope that they can learn from their past mistakes over the last 10 years. New management should hopefully be a good thing. But of course, that's not a shoe-in. It's not guaranteed. So, but rest assured, I'm sure we will be there breaking it down.
Yes, we will for sure. And again, hoping for the best for what they come.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers are crossed, but cautiously optimistic.
Hopefully they course correct and learn from like what didn't work the first time around. This next one I want to throw out there because we have both died on the hill of like really enjoying this particular horror movie that was I guess that was polarizing with a lot of people,
I know where you're going with that.
And the reason I'm bringing it up again because it grew even more discourse because like the movie we're talking about is Skinamarink. We both you saw it first and then you were like, dude, watch it. I want to know what you thought of it.
Yes.
We both watched it in the proper setting, alone, uh, you know, in the dark, as it should be watched.
Yes.
It worked for you and I.
Not so much for everybody else.
It
JC,
did.
shout out. I saw
Yeah,
his review.
JC hates him some Skinamarink.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do, but the discourse I think grew again because Variety named it their #1 horror movie of 2023.
I saw that actually. I forgot until you mentioned it though, but I read that the other day and I was like, good for it.
Yeah. Now here, I don't think it's the best horror movie of 2023. For me, that would probably be Talk to Me. I would by a mile. I think I would put that ahead of it.
Did you see When Evil Lurks?
No, okay, no, I did.
I thought
I
the
saw
same
that
thing
on
about
your.
Talk to Me until
I saw that on your letterbox. Actually,
Yeah.
I was like looking. I was like, oh, he rated it pretty high. But I haven't seen it yet.
I'd be curious to see if you reshuffle that after seeing that movie. I can't recommend it enough, but I agree. Talk to Me is absolutely up there as well. Skinamarink, I think, gets extra points for being insanely innovative and I mean more or less original, at least in terms of how it's filmed and the style. But I think that gives it an edge because it doesn't it comparing it to a movie like, you know, something more mainstream like Talk to Me or When Evil Lurks or Scream 6, it is completely, it's very disadvantaged because it doesn't have that what's the word I'm looking here for, that guess typical sort of structure. It's not going to hook people in with, you know, a bunch of gore and a typical storyline and arcs and stuff that like a regular movie would have. It's very experimental. And I think as good as it is and as unsettling as it is, given those disadvantages, is why I agree with Variety that it is the best.
Yeah. And we both are, we believe everyone is entitled to their own opinion on something.
Absolutely.
Right? This is, but that being said, I really wish people who didn't like it would stop acting like the movie like Kick Their Puppy, because the way they get mad at other people who like it. I've watched that. I watched that like when Variety put that at #1, and then I was watching other people who were like supporting that, like
some feathers were ruffled, eh?
Yeah, justice for Skinamarink, and then it just turns to like a brawl over the internet. Like, how could you like that garbage? It's just like, someone filming a wall for like an hour, and like really like
right.
I think I said this when we talked about it and we kind of like reviewed it. If you were to like, if someone in your film class presented that movie as like in their film studies, like whatever, and you watched it, they would have gotten high praise. I think they're being like, wow, that was pretty cool. That was like, what you were able to do with so little.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I think we kind of talked about it. Like, I think we both understood why people didn't like it. Like we could identify like, I can see why, this wasn't for everyone, but I don't know. It worked for me. I thought it did. I thought for what he was able to do for not much money at all. Right. And again, I think it is one of those things. I mean, not saying that everyone didn't watch it the way that we watched it, but it's all about the setting too. It's like you need to watch that in a particular setting, so you are like kind of set the mood for yourself to be in the place of like, basically in the place of what you're actually watching. And that's how I felt when I watched it alone in the dark by myself.
Right.
And, I mean, it like unsettled me. It did its job, and and that worked for you as well. So I was proud to die on that hill with you. I was like, yeah, we both liked it.
Exactly. Very proud of that movie and glad to have seen it this year, and also grabbed a physical copy of it at my local store, which I didn't think I would see so soon, which I'm happy about. But Skinamarink and the discourse around defending it brings some, like, it highlights to me something that I hate about being like, I'll call myself an amateur critic for the sake of this conversation. I don't know if I would qualify as that, but as someone who likes movies and analyzes them and spends quite a bit of time, dissecting them, it feels like you're like, when you're defending a movie like Skinamarink, it feels like you're kind of gatekeeping it. At least I feel that way, because I'm like, this movie's not made for everybody. And if you're going in expecting, I can imagine and sympathize with somebody who was told Skinamarink is one of the scariest movies ever and destined to be one of the greatest of the year and everyone should see it. And then you're going to go in expecting something like Talk to Me or, I don't know, Hellraiser or something like more conventional, which is the word I was struggling to think of earlier. And then to see something like that, an experimental, low budget movie that's really taking a gamble, that's more tailored to people. Like you said, it's made by guys going in film school. it's not really made. It is made for anybody to watch, but it's not really tailored to every audience member. And so obviously people are going to be blindsided by that and say it's utter garbage because ultimately they just didn't understand what the movie is about, what it's actually doing, and how important and impressive it is. So to say that and to say it to people, like, I feel like condescending, and that's why that's part of the reviewing, that the side of being like a critic, I guess, again, amateur, that I don't like having to do, because I feel like a gatekeeper, like condescending and telling someone you obviously just didn't get this movie. You don't want to say that. But it's absolutely not garbage. Skinamarink was fantastic in the right setting. If you sign up for it, I think it, and you know what you're getting, then I would struggle to not recommend it to somebody, but definitely not for everybody.
I think what added to the discourse too is kind of like what we've talked about that can kind of hurt movies sometimes was that kind of pre-release, like, this is like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It kind of grew that hype on TikTok. I know that kind of was like the start of like the whole Skinamarink phenomenon, is that it was being talked about a lot on TikTok, and everyone, a bunch of like 13-year-olds saying it was like the scariest thing they've ever seen. I
can't imagine 13-year-olds watching that movie and actually sticking longer than 5 minutes.
So I mean, I get it when there's a lot of hype in front of anything, and then you finally see it. Sometimes it's like, well, that didn't live up to what you guys were saying it was. So I understand it, but like I said, stop acting like the movie kicked your puppy, because it did not, and then don't harp on other people who actually enjoyed it. Don't say that we have bad taste because we enjoyed it. I saw a lot of that too. Movies aren't
which
made,
is so annoying to be told that.
The great thing about like film is that, hey, there's something for me and there's something for you. What might be for you might not be for me. But who cares? Like, I mean, if I don't like something, I'm not going to attack you for enjoying it.
Exactly.
I know it is really. I hate when they get like personal, like when it's almost like, do you even like really like good scary movies? Like, wow, now you're just attacking my like my overall taste as well. All right, okay, cool. Like,
exactly. But there is no such thing as good and bad in this medium, right? Like, it's all personal opinion, and there's some objective qualities to filmmaking, but you can expect everybody to like the same stuff to the same degree. So in that case, good and bad just become obsolete.
And proudly again in 2024, Gaius and Jackson can also continue to say Team Skinamarink all the way. Continuing to die on that hill.
I can't wait to watch it again. I know it'll be. I'm going to put some distance between it just to replicate that first watch experience, and I feel like I would get bored if I were to rewatch it so soon after, because knowing it is a bit of a slog in some parts, but I was loving those moments. But whenever it comes down to it, I'm excited to watch Skinamarink again. Funny little story from 2023.
But a fun one, because it's almost like it was almost like kind of, I low key enjoyed to watch when Variety named it number one. I was kind of laughing at everyone, like, everyone's getting mad again. Here they come. They got a little quiet because like the hype had faded a little bit, and then that just stirred them up again. They were just like ruffled their feathers, and they got keyboard courage, and they were like, oh, let's talk about how much we hated it.
Keyboard courage.
We both enjoyed it, but a really interesting just movie talking point from the year to kind of watch, how polarizing it was. Either you loved it or you hated it. There was like
clearly there was nothing in between. That's one of those true movies where there was very, very polarizing in the complete definition of the word. There was not much middle ground to be had with Skinamarink. No.
All right, but what do you got up next when you're in?
The other thing I wanted to mention, of course, I think we would be foolish not to have covered it in a 2023 retrospective, but the Barbenheimer phenomenon. I know we touched on it earlier, but to have had such a successful marketing campaign for two movies from competing studios this year was fantastic to actually watch, just for the industry, and to watch and see all this engagement with these two movies from people from all over the film world, from hardcore professional critics to just average casual fans of movies to fans of either crews of these movies, and to have so many people show up and for those movies to make a collective $2.5 billion is really exciting, fun stuff to see.
Crazy.
It had its negative impacts as well. Like I don't think a Mattel verse is something that I want to see in the film industry going forward.
Yeah,
And they had
I did.
that was crazy.
I did love some of what people said is like, Hollywood just learns the wrong things. Like it's like,
They
hey,
really do.
what you should have learned is that, hey, if you're gonna make something like a Barbie, make sure that you have great creative minds behind it, that you actually have good performers in it, and that's what you should focus on. And instead, what they focused on was like, oh, we need more like toy movies. We need more of our.
Exactly.
I was like, what? That's what you learned from
Not
it,
the
and
lesson.
that is like. And that I agree is the negative part of it. Is just like, oh, you would hope they would learn the good thing from this, and they, opposite. But it was a really interesting thing to watch. I think I told you, after that opening weekend, after I saw Barbie, I had to go to other press screenings for other movies, and I just remember being shocked over that next 2-3 week period during the week on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Theater is just packed with people dressed all in pink seeing Barbie. Like that wasn't just like a fluke. That was a true phenomenon that we haven't really seen in a while.
Right, which is exciting
for a particular movie. And I think what ended up happening, the Barbenheimer thing was created on the internet. This was not two studios coming together and being like, hey, let's let's see how we can help each other. This was a internet thing that kind of like blew up and benefited both movies. I mean, we had a thing where they were saying that like some of AMC's stubs programs were saying that they were having a massive amount of tickets for people who were seeing both movies on the same day. Right. And that sometimes the internet can do some really good things, and that's what I think this was like the coming together of like I mean, I don't even say fan base, just two different types of like people who love different types of movies, and then it coming together in a way where they financially benefited from. They both did. I mean, I know the whole Oppenheimer thing is more than like its connection to Barbie. This is also just proof that Christopher Nolan is one of the few directors who can sell a movie on his name alone.
Yes,
I don't think anyone else really can release a historical 3-hour epic in the heart of summer and have it make as much money as it did.
The only other person I would say would stand a chance would be Quentin Tarantino.
Right. And, talking about Barbenheimer as a whole together collectively, that is a true phenomenon. But even just looking at what they did separately, is really great to see. It kind of gives you hope when something like Oppenheimer makes that much money, worldwide, domestically and worldwide, where it's like, hey, people really do want to see movies like this if they're made by really good people and they're really done well and they're done right. There's an audience for them, and I liked what Barbie kind of proved too. I mean, like to finally have a female director that had a movie that cleared $1 billion worldwide is a true
milestone.
It's crazy. It's crazy that we don't have more of that. I mean, that's what that shines a light on. It's cool that Greta Gerwig gets to have that on her mantle, but it's like you would think not, but there should be more of them. At this point, but yeah, it was great to see, and it was like this really kind of harmonious coming together of movie fans that made, and like I really think it carried some weight in like maybe the first 2-3 weekends of those movies opening together.
Definitely, and the most interesting part about what came to be from the Barbenheimer summer release is that if you remember thinking back to like how those movies came to be scheduled for the same weekend, is kind of comes from a place of malice from Warner Brothers, right? Because like fans will know Nolan historically released most of his movies with Warner Brothers, and they had a falling out after the release of Tenet, where he parted ways with the studio and then hitched on to Paramount, right?
Universal.
I never get that right.
Yeah.
And so in a sort of fuck you from Warner Brothers, they put their big tentpole summer blockbuster release Barbie at the same opening day to sort of compete and not budge for Nolan, who was making his first movie without them after their little spat. And but I'm sure nobody anticipated what would become of that. And I think both studios, I'm sure, are happy with the result, but I'm sure that certainly wasn't the intention behind closed doors when those movies met that same release date initially. But hilarious what came to be.
That is funny. That's a good point because we were just talking about how like it was a true like harmonious coming together of movie fans, but it probably did. But
That was not the intention, I don't think.
in the halls of those studios, it didn't start that way. They're like, well, fuck you. They will just release our movie on the same date as your movie. And it worked. It worked out. I mean, I did love hearing when Margot Robbie and Cillian Murphy did the actors on actors thing for Variety, and she mentioned that a producer on Oppenheimer like got in touch with her because she's a producer on Barbie and was like, hey, can you move your movie? And she's like, no, if you really are worried about your movie coming out against our movie, then you move your movie. So I'm glad she stood around, and
totally.
Because honestly, Barbie, as a lot of people probably know, went through so many different incarnations, and it was in development where it was like Anne Hathaway was attached at one point, Amy Schumer was attached to a Barbie movie at one point, but it wasn't until Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig got attached to it where they, especially Margot Robbie, knew what they had. She walked into Warner Brothers, pitched it as like, this is going to be as big as Jurassic Park, and I'm sure they were kind of like, oh, okay, oh sure, and she wasn't wrong. It was a huge financial and critical success. Now, not only a financial success, but an award season player now too, which is also and now both movies are Oppenheimer and Barbie. That Barbenheimer thing kind of lives on through all the nominations that we've kind of like what we've seen is that both movies have stacked nominations across all of these kind of award ceremonies that are leading up to the Oscars. So it's a wave that started in the summer and has continued to. They've been riding it together, and like you said, didn't start out from a probably lovely place, but I'm sure both studios are equally happy with the outcome.
Yeah, and certainly.
Again, what the internet can do when it's used for good, because that was not a studio plan at all. This was like
couldn't have been
a groundswell of like people creating this thing online, kind of joining together these two very different movies and then having that be so creatively successful. I don't know if we'll ever really see something like that again. I don't know.
Feels like a once in a decade sort of event. If that.
And I honestly don't want people to try to duplicate it because I think it'd be really hard to duplicate that.
I feel like it needs to come from a genuine place, like it did with these two movies. To replicate it doesn't carry that same magical feeling.
It was organic. Like
organic is a better word.
That's why it worked. There wasn't a plan. It wasn't a plan at all.
You can't manufacture something like that.
And by the way, I mean, I know like movies are back, people are going to the movies, but this was another example of like people are going to the movies to go see things that they really want to see. So that was another good thing about it. How it really shined the light on like, hey, when you make something really good, people will go see it. And
it takes away that ammo from producers and I guess those who say when their movie fails at the box office, it's because people aren't ready to go back to the movies yet. Like certain studio heads have been deflecting that blame when their movies haven't turned out the box office numbers that they were anticipating. It's like, movies like and events like Barbenheimer literally, negate that. So it kind of takes away that fire from people that like to blame. Nobody goes to the movies anymore. Looking at 2023 and in comparison to other years, it had significantly less billion-dollar movies released, but still plenty of people showing up. Still, box office I think is in a healthy spot, and people are more in the box office more so than a reflection of how many people are going to the movies. It's now showing what people are willing to show up for, what kind of movies. They're not going just mindlessly to just watch whatever's spewed out. They're going and choosing what movies to spend their money on, and that I hope inevitably is a lesson that I want studios to take from the 2023 financial box office year.
Yeah, agreed. One thing I wanted to throw in as another thing to look back on, because some of it is very recent, and it gives us a kind of chance to mention one piece of news that we kind of missed because of the break that we were on. The kind of rise and fall of the Scream franchise in record time by Spyglass Media Group. As you know, like Scream 6, and I'll even throw in Scream 2022. They were both financially successful, critically successful. That last Scream was became the highest grossing domestic earner of the Scream franchise. and then one of the biggest worldwide of the Scream franchise. And what the hell do you do with that kind of momentum? How do you fuck it up?
It can be done.
You fire your lead star for having an opinion. Uh, you lose your biggest star, Engineer Ortega. You can blame it on scheduling conflicts, but I think that was more of like, if you're gonna fuck with my girl Melissa Barrera, I don't really want to be involved in your movie either. I really think it has more to do with that. I really think if she could have found the time to work that into her schedule, if there was no like kind of like bad blood going on, I think she would have done it. I think she could have easily figured out a way to even have a small part in it. So that's why I think them finding Melissa Barrera over perceived like anti-Semitic kind of genocide references, which as we talked about in detail, we both looked at the stuff that she shared, and we both were like not getting the impression that Spyglass got whatsoever.
No,
and that being a genuine reason to let her go. I think that was a really poor move on their part. And then the news that kind of came out of that again, another strike three is, Christopher Landon left directing Scream 7. And when he announced it on Twitter, I mean, it wasn't, it was kind of a snarky announcement of it. It's not something that you would really like, your PR people probably wouldn't want you to announce it that way. But it was like, he basically had left the project weeks before he even put out that tweet, and he basically said that this was something that started out as a dream and became a nightmare. So you have to understand that whatever was going on behind the scenes there, it's not going well, and
it seems dead in the water as of now.
And now we've kind of touched on it a little bit, and I say this as a Scream fan, I loved having that kind of resurgence of the last two of them. It was fun to have that back, but I don't really think it can really work now the way they want it to in the hands of Spyglass Media Group, if that's how they're going to treat the talent involved. And, like, as we know, like they've treated, the thing with Jenna Ortega, actually, they said probably has more to do with like, she wanted more money as well. And as the film's biggest star, she would be deserving of that money because she played a significant role, as a lot of trades said, in how well Scream 6 did. They put some of that on her. And, and Spyglass apparently did not want to play ball by offering more money. And we know they did that with Neve Campbell when she wanted more money to come back for Scream 6.
At least they're consistent.
Yeah. There you go. In a very negative way. Yeah. But if it's going to be like that, then I don't want any more of them if it can't be done with the right people.
Right.
And I say that as someone that really loves this franchise, but I would kind of almost prefer that it was put to rest for a while until either they get their shit together or they just realize this isn't the home for Scream and they try to sell the rights to someone else. So I say that almost sadly as a Scream fan, but I kind of don't want it to go on if it's going to like be done like this.
No, completely understand. Yeah, it is annoying, like having that, these first two movies come out and like inevitably you expect a trilogy. And so for things to go awry behind the scenes and sort of end with this sort of cliffhanger with 6 and not have an actual resolution and see the end of this story, it's really annoying and frustrating and just highlights the bad side of entertainment when things don't go according to plan and things get messed up. It's really annoying for fans that just want to see their favorite series and characters brought to life and not have to worry about this behind the scenes bullshit that those involved unfortunately have to mitigate. And it's definitely not the story, not what I think either expected and definitely not wanted to hear about the development of Scream 7. But I know when that news was breaking and we were on our break from the show, I was thinking very much having wanted to cover it, but I'm glad we got the chance to talk about it now because it's definitely a newsworthy story.
Yeah, for sure. And like, and honestly, like I'm glad we were able to fit it into this because like that, it's not like a big overlapping story. Like, I mean, that was just kind of like the final nail, and like losing him was like, And I also heard possibly they may have lost their writers too. So let's just like,
sounds like there's no Scream 7 as of right now.
I just can't believe like you have like you're coming off like one of the biggest hits of the franchise in like over 20 years, and that's how you fuck it up, like that
Right.
in record time. And I remember telling you, I was like, and of course in 24 hours they completely like ruined everything in like a
Yeah.
day. Yeah, it's sad to see, and Scream fans are very passionate. They are very vocal.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and it's not always pleasant. I don't like any kind of polarizing fan reactions. Even if I love a franchise, it can be really snarky and mean. There are some people that came at Christopher Landon directly, sending him death threats because they thought that he didn't stand behind Melissa Barrera and all this stuff.
Jesus, people are crazy.
The decision regarding her, he had nothing to do with. And for people to say like, well, he should have publicly stood alongside her when they fired her, what people don't understand sometimes is like when you're under contract with a movie, if we're doing a movie, and a studio might not let you say certain things when regarding kind of these like personal matters within a film's production. So he might have maybe wanted to stand by her, but he probably couldn't because of contracts, blah 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 blah. And people need to understand that before they just assume that like he is being a coward and not really like showing up and supporting her. Yeah, when I read that he posted that he did receive death threats from people, I was like, that is.
I didn't hear that. I knew that he got flack and caught a lot of negative attention for his perceived role and everything going down. And I know he responded to that, but I didn't hear that it had gone so far as death threats, which is absolutely ridiculous. But of course, that doesn't surprise me either. People don't. That doesn't
surprise me either. People, it's just the bad side of fandom.
Assume stuff and jump to conclusions in every single facet of life, and it's just ignorant and stupid. And but I did not actually hear that, which is insane.
And also, like, it's a matter of like, don't speak on things if you don't know everything, if you don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
Like,
that's wishful thinking, my man.
I know. Again, everyone with their keyboard courage, calm down.
Yeah, exactly.
Step out of your parents' basement before you get on your computer and get all angry.
At least try to like do some digging and understand the situation. Most people just think without actual intention behind their thoughts.
Yeah. I know, yeah, you probably have this one too. That's why I have it up. I guess another thing that we could kind of reflect on from 2023 was talking about quick rise and fall, was the quick rise and fall of one Jonathan Majors.
Another story I wish that we were able to cover while that was developing, but that whole saga has now completed. Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, like, we kind of pride ourselves on not being like, not too TMZ on Black to Box Poster, like, where we don't want to really talk about like people's like legal woes on a show like this, because it sounds more gossip than actual movie news. But it kind of bled into huge movie news because, as everyone know, at the start of the year he was on a quick rise. So even though Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania wasn't like, it didn't break even, blah blah blah, it wasn't really well reviewed, blah blah blah. He was really well reviewed in the movie. He is being set up as this major, big, bad new Thanos in the MCU. So he has that movie come out, even though it doesn't do hugely well compared to other Marvel movies. It opens at #1, and I think within like 2 weeks, he then has Creed 3 open massively at #1. Another financial critical success where he's getting high praise for his work in it. And then there's also this like early groundswell for this movie that he did out of Sundance called Magazine Dreams that was supposed to come out in December as a big awards contender. He was being pushed heavily as like someone they thought would be planted in the best actor race when that movie was viewed at Sundance. So he had all of that really crazy good momentum, and that all just ended when he gets arrested for, God, do you now say alleged domestic abuse now that it's over? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think he was actually charged with assault and harassment. So I mean, no longer alleged, but proven.
Yeah, I found guilty for it. He has a sentencing. I think it's in February. He could spend up to a year in prison, but I don't think he will. I think I think there'll be some deals maybe where he won't even do any time at all. But in the court of public opinion and the court of movie fandom, when that verdict came down, like that, Marvel was like,
Yeah,
we're not doing
that's
it
a death
anymore.
sentence. Yeah.
We're not doing it anymore. He's not going to continue on with us anymore as part of the MCU. Very smart on Marvel's part to not make that announcement until they got a verdict. Because if they would have
Yeah.
reacted too soon and just canned him, then they would have been like, oh, like, you know, he's innocent until proven guilty. Why just assume that he did it?
Right.
They were very smart to wait. I did kind of laugh with how quickly they announced it after the verdict came out. It was like right after. But and there's other bigger implications about what this means for the MCU. Like how will they address? Do they recast him? Do they just pivot and focus on the new villain? Blah 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 blah. There's like that is a bigger discussion that I don't even think
Yeah.
that we don't really need to touch on. But I think that what we've talked about and what you kind of want to bring up too is like what it was like to really watch someone have so much and then like right away just lose it, and what seemed like a crazy short amount of time. And I think that's what we both kind of reflected on even during the break when that news kind of dropped.
Yeah.
So I want to know how you kind of felt about watching that and how you feel about it now that there is a verdict, and you know what you kind of know now.
I guess I don't really feel one way or another about it. I still actually to this day, I don't think I've seen any of his actual like roles. I've never seen like an actual Jonathan Majors film, so I don't have much of an opinion on him as an actor. I'm glad that what came to light, he is going to be punished for it. I think I would feel a little bit differently about it if it had turned out that he was acquitted and found to be innocent of these things and was able to like redeem himself or struggle with redeeming himself in the court of public opinion, and how this is going to impact his acting career. That would be something I'd be more interested in if it had gone that way. But where it's now, it's just a guy that had a couple of successful movies earlier in the year is found guilty of being a piece of shit and isn't going to have much of a career probably. So boom, that happens all the time. So
by the way, guys, that was a proper legal term. Proper legal term.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
for being found guilty of being a piece of shit.
So that being the case and the outcome, it just doesn't, it felt like it just, I don't know. And I wasn't, I mean, would have been cool to see, I guess, what would become of his career if had this not happened, if his Marvel role would have catapulted him into further success as an actor. Would have been interesting to sort of like see the rise of his career, but now that will probably not be the case, and I don't really feel one way or another about it, other than I hope whoever he has hurt, feels good about this outcome, and he pays for what he's done. That's all I can really comment on, I guess, about this situation. I guess what could have been is, it's a shame though that it all had to go down that way and that this happened. And I'm sure, all this notwithstanding, maybe this was a bad night. Maybe this isn't who he is as a person, but I hope he changes. And other than that, though, I don't really know if I will expect to see anything else from Jonathan Majors going forward. I'm going to doubt it, but Kevin Spacey's come back from arguably worse, so who knows?
I kind of feel like you. I thought I would have stronger feeling. Like when we started talking about it, like last year. When we started talking about this, it was such a huge story and what it meant for his. Yeah, at the time it happened.
Yeah,
and the point of his career, like it was, he was on a big come up. Like it was like, I really was like, 1 week we were reading about like what's next for Jonathan Majors in a good way, and then the next we were like, oh, the opposite of that within a week. But I don't have extremely strong feelings about it either. I mean, it sucks. I mean, like you said, it may not be a reflection of who he is as a person overall. It could have been one bad night. I think everyone has those.
Sometimes
they don't always result in you getting physical with your significant other.
That's the difference.
But I kind of think, can he come back from it? It's possible. But I think a lot of major studios would be reluctant to work with him now.
Right. I mean, his talent agency dropped him instantly, right? Like,
yeah. I guess it's just sad to kind of like, he did what he did. It's awful. I guess the sad part is like you you also like love hearing these success stories, like watching people rise up like the way he was doing.
Right. Exactly.
And what, like you said, what could have been. And I think that's the sad part
That's
about
the
it.
sad part. I agree.
You know, you have that much momentum, and then like, you know, your personal choices, you gotta think about them no matter what profession you're in, they just can come back and bite you in the ass. And I think that I don't know, of course we don't know him personally, but there could have been a little like cockiness on his part, watching that come up and maybe thinking that like a little untouchable.
Yeah, I get that vibe a little bit.
Because I actually did listen to some of that audio recording that he had with his girlfriend, and he's talking down to her. It's kind of condescending, and the way he's talking about himself.
Did he not compare himself to like MLK or?
He basically was like, because she's getting mad at her because she was drunk at a party, whatever it was, and he's basically saying like, you know, you need to like, you're gonna stand alongside me. You need to be like, you know, like Barack has like Michelle Obama, and you know,
God,
you know, MLK had like Coretta Scott King. You need to be like that. That's the level I'm on. And I was like, oh God. And like I cringed in my seat listening to it, because I was like,
yeah, I mean, give me a break.
That is a kind of a reflection of who he might be as a person.
Right.
And you know, that was like, yeah, when I listened to that, I was like, yeah, that didn't help.
A little egotistical. No, definitely not.
Yeah. So again, sad, but unfortunate.
Yeah.
To watch.
Yeah.
I have another one, but unless we might have the same big story.
Nope.
But I guess like one of the last things is like the strikes and how that kind of affected the industry as a whole. Like you had the WGA strike that kind of kicked things off, and then the SAG strike happened during the summer, kind of halted promotions on any and all movies. It also delayed a lot of movies. I think both of us are still sad that we have to wait till March to get Dune Part 2.
Yes.
That was one of the casualties of the strikes, is that studios were like, if our talent can't promote these movies, then we need to delay them until this is over. You know, thankfully it did end, but I think what we kind of learned out of that was how very greedy some of the higher ups are.
Yes.
At these studios and streamers, and like what that kind of reveals about these people in charge of the money.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I got out of it the most. I mean, yes, it was great that now that, you know, writers and actors will be getting better deals and better a piece of the pie as far as like residuals on streaming and like protections over AI and all that. But like, it revealed a really ugly side when you were hearing the kind of behind the scenes, like, hey, maybe we can wait this out because eventually they're going to need money to pay their rent and all this other stuff. And, you know, we can wait this out longer than they can. And that was like the ugly part of it. And I think that's what we kind of saw as it all played out.
And it didn't surprise me. I feel like that is like a side to the industry that we all know subconsciously is there, that it just isn't as present until you get situations like the strike that kind of bring it about. But it doesn't surprise me that, you know, there are greedy, morally bankrupt studio execs and huge heads of these behind these businesses and these movie studios that are in it for themselves. It doesn't surprise me at all. It is gross to have seen it actualize, like what we did with the strikes and like what you just commented on. But now that it's all behind us, it seems like the strikes aren't as big a deal now, but I feel like the legacy of them beyond, you know, shuffling around some release dates will be in the concessions that the writers and actors made in their bargaining agreements, and particularly the protections of AI. Because I think if that stuff had have kind of gone under the radar and wasn't, I guess, caught as it was, and if these changes hadn't have been made, that would have crazy implications for the studio, or the industry rather, going forward. But now that they've secured these protections, it's sort of like something that we won't see the effects of, because we won't run into these problems about actors, you know, having their likeness scanned for AI, and they've secured, you know, I guess we will see a little bit more transparency with streaming numbers and stuff, which is nice. But it's just nice that these things were addressed and that they got what I'm assuming is the outcome that they wanted with their bargaining agreement. So glad that they were able to come to a resolution. It's unfortunate and annoying that it took as long as it did and that it really jeopardized the release year, like the release calendar for 2023. But undoubtedly, I think looking back in 2023, that will be probably the biggest news story, will be the impact on the industry that both simultaneous strikes had. And I'm just praying that the Directors Guild doesn't have any, like, that their contract's not due to expire anytime soon, because it would be nice just to have one solid year at least of uninterrupted film releases. Pandemic strikes notwithstanding, would be great just to go back to regular scheduled programming.
Well, thankfully, or no, it depends on how you look at it. DGA, they did re-up right before WGA and SAG did.
Okay, great.
But I think what you saw in that is that they quickly took a new deal when they kind of knew that the WGA and SAG were fighting for a better deal. So they were actually they got a lot of flack for just kind of settling for maybe not the best, but they were like, hey, we just want to get this out of the way. And they did get a bit of flack of that because they knew what was coming with the other guild. So but I agree with you. Now that this is kind of all done, between what COVID did to the industry, what the strikes did, I too want a whole as we do this whole new year of Back to the Blockbuster. I would love to have a whole year of uninterrupted release dates for all these movies.
Hopefully that's not too much to ask for.
I know. I mean, cost me 2 Zendaya movies in 1 year, guys.
Exactly.
That wasn't cool. But yeah, like you said, moving forward, when they have to renegotiate in 4 years, it'll be a lot easier for them to do that again, because they have a better deal now in place. For themselves. And like we said, we mentioned a lot, this really kneecapped the industry as a whole, not just actors and writers, but all the people that work within the industry, all the union workers that work within the industry, catering, costumes, makeup artists, all that stuff. They all were out of work during during that whole time that this went on. So I think you kind of saw the ripple effects. It wasn't just about the writers and the actors. It really kneecapped the industry as a whole and cost a lot of people a lot of money. But kudos to all of them for standing their ground, and they knowing that they would have to pick up other jobs. Some of them were getting bartending jobs, other jobs. Some of them went and did stuff for reality TV, and they work in they work in film because they needed to work, and that was sad to see that kind of struggle of what it kind of really right away how it shut everything down.
Right.
But I'm glad we're on the other side of it now.
Very much so. Glad, because it was pretty dismal there for a few months, and then when the acting strike came a couple of months after the writer strike had already started, it felt like, oh my God, are we going to see an end of this? And how long is this one going to go for? It was just very dark times, and to have impeded the summer release calendar was also very annoying. It would have been nice to have gone through that, our first year together, talking about a more conventional release schedule. But it still made for good. And I guess it put a hampering on our news side of the podcast, but for us, it had a unexpected benefit.
Pivoted.
So we rolled with the punches and got to spend more time talking about individual movies, I guess. So that was all right. That's one good thing about this industry. We'll never run out of things to talk about.
Yeah, and everyone had to pivot. People that do what we're doing, websites that cover movies had to pivot.
Yep.
More features, less news stories. There was a lot. Everyone kind of had to adjust to it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was definitely not something that we loved covering.
No. But glad it was over.
We were both very excited when they both ended. So yeah.
But I don't know about you. I think that was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think
when people look back, what was the big news story of 2023 for the movies? The simultaneous strikes were a big one.
Yep, I agree, and I probably get good notes to hit on with that one.
I mean, talking about it, it sounds like 2023 was a dismal year. There were a lot of negatives, but I feel good going into 2024 about the state of the industry, and we had a lot of amazing films that came out this year that we will be talking about and sharing with you guys in the upcoming weeks when we break down our top. I don't think we've even decided how many I think top 10 is a good number to look at, but
Yeah.
there's been so many good ones. 15 might not even be a bad way to approach our best movies or favorite movies of the year. But I think overall it was a good year. There was a lot of great films, more negative news stories coming out and things that happened in the industry like we just discussed. But overall, I think it was net good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And kind of what you're gonna kind of see, I guess, in these first few weeks of January, is that it'll be a little bit of a reflection on the previous year. Like you said, we'll have our best of list. We haven't really talked about doing most disappointing. I know some people think that's negative. I don't know if we are going to do it. I don't know if we are going to do
I'd
it.
be all
We
right with doing
can.
that. Yeah, I'll have to put some thought into that, but definitely.
But we probably have that as well. But collectively as a show, we are very excited for what the year's going to bring for us. We talked offline about what we want to do in the year on the show, and we were very excited to like make some changes and all of that. So we were just really excited to bring you a really exciting new show in the new year. And I think we kind of, like we said, that 2-week break was good because we got to like recharge our batteries, and now we're like really excited to hit the ground running and bring out more stuff. And like we have that to look forward to. You have a 1-year anniversary episode to look forward to.
That's right. That's coming up
soon. Your first official episode as a regular. Like we said, your one as a guest dropped on 12/29 of 02.
Yes.
And your first episode as a permanent co-host of Back to the Boxer dropped on January 13th of last year. So you've been part of the team for almost a full year now, and like we said, that went by really, really fast. I was actually talking about it with some of my friends, and that listened to it, and they were just like, they're so kind of amazed that it worked out the way that it did, and even I tell them, I was like, one of the most unconventional friendships I've ever had. I've never had
certainly myself included.
This is like, I guess like the new way of almost like having like a pen pal. That's what kind of. But we have gotten to know each other through doing this, and not only become good partners in this, but also have become friends in this. So I'm really excited that having you on board at this full year, and I'm very excited to celebrate you and that full year with that episode as well. Because
I'm very looking forward to that as well.
The show would not be what it is now without what became of that partnership almost a year ago. So very excited to continue that on through this year and many more.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way. And the last year, for beyond even the show, but just from my experience with it, has been something that until it happened, I never would have guessed in my wildest dreams I'd be doing. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I owe all that to you. So yeah, it's been a fantastic year. I love doing what we do. I look forward to it every week, and it's one of my cherished pastimes, and I'm very grateful too for our partnership and friendship that became of this. And like you said, very unconventional, but a lot of the best things are. And thank you for making me part of the show, because it's been like you said, a very fast year, but very exciting. And we do have a lot of awesome stuff to bring towards to our listeners, who we also love and admire. And I'm happy to be a part of it, and looking forward to what we are going to be bringing together as a team.
Yeah, very excited. And of course, a lot of the stuff that you guys love will still be a part of the show. Movie anniversaries will be a big thing. We have one coming up for sure. I know I want to do Varsity Blues. That'll probably be like one of the first ones that comes out of this month. And I know JC's already penciled him in for wanting to join us for that.
Sweet.
If anyone knows that, listen, JC he pencils himself in like way ahead of time for certain movies.
He's on the ball.
He penciled himself in for The Faculty a whole year in advance before we did that 25th anniversary for that. He penciled himself in for Varsity Blues. He's penciled himself in for Cruel Intentions in March. He knows what movies he wants to talk about with us for their anniversaries. So I do actually appreciate that. I think it's kind of cool that he gets excited about wanting to join us on those episodes.
We love JC over here.
Yeah. And, we're very excited to have more guests on, but also kind of make the show grow on our own as well as a creative unit with each other. Because I think what we kind of bring to it ourselves is what's made the show flourish. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited for what's to come. in the year.
I know it's so nice to be at the beginning of the year and look forward to everything that is to come, because it's so exciting to see everything that we have mapped out and to bring, and there's it's only going to grow from here, which it's exciting. I like January for that reason, and just we owe a lot of thanks too for the people that are still listening this far in and for joining us on all the episodes that we deliver. It's a lot of fun, and you guys are the ones that we do it for.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing that I say, you've been on a year, right? But it kind of feels like, again, in its own way, its own little reset, where it's like, you were on for that full year, but now that you are fully, I mean, you were already fully ingrained pretty early on when you joined, but it now feels like this is also like, I mean, I'm trying to make that the case in the beginning, but this is also like your thing too. Like it's very much like something you are heavily involved in, and it's not more like a, hey, you kind of latched on or tagged along to this thing. Like that wasn't the case a long time ago, but definitely not the case now. So,
right. Yeah. Well, without any further ado, then I suppose, guys, thank you for joining us on another episode of Back to the Blockbuster. This has been our first of the year for 2024, which is episode 141, which is crazy. We're getting to that 150 mark, which is exciting. We should do something for that, a little half milestone before episode 200. But for those that are still listening, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to all the stuff that we have ready to bring to you guys throughout the year, including throughout the rest of this month. We'll be looking back at our favorite movies from 2023. And of course, we'll be delivering our most anticipated movies for the following year in 2024. Also really looking forward to revisiting our predictions for the Oscars this year. Once those nominations are released on the 23rd, will be a good opportunity for us to go back and look at what our predictions were. I know mine are very wrong, but very excited to share that list with you guys. And thank you guys as always for listening. Find us wherever you guys get your podcasts, and tell all your friends that love movie content where they can find us anywhere on social media at the handle Back to the Blockbuster. Again, episode 141 in the books. Thank you, Gaius. Looking forward to next week where we chat the Golden Globes, which are happening this Sunday, January 7th. Make sure you guys check those out too. I don't know where to tell you guys to watch them though, but I'm sure you'll know.
Yeah, they're actually going to be they're actually going to be airing for the first time on CBS, and it will be on Paramount Plus as well.
Yeah.
And in addition to the Golden Globes, I actually go to the Astro Awards on Saturday, so I'll be able to talk about that. I'll be an in-person thing, and hopefully I'll be able to share a lot of fun pictures and maybe meet some really cool people and be able to share that with you guys.
Sweet.
And what that experience is like on our next episode. So yeah, that's another thing to look forward to.
All right, guys. Well, until next week, take her easy, stay safe, and have a happy new year.
Peace.